Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our 12th webinar, Practices and Learnings from Attractions That Have Already Reopened, Part 2. We're super glad that everyone could join us today. And while we're starting off here, we're going to keep the poll open. So if you want to participate in that, we'd appreciate your feedback there. That'll be going away in just a little bit, so great time to do it right now. So one of the first things I just want to make sure that everyone's familiar with is how you get to participate. This webinar is really about bringing the community together, and that involves participation from the community. So in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you're probably going to see an area where you can that's labeled Q&A. This is an opportunity for you to submit questions to us that then we'll bring up with our panelists or we'll respond back directly so that everyone gets an answer to that. So if you want to go ahead and just familiarize yourself with where that is, find that Q&A section. Just want to make sure that it's set to all panelists. Go ahead and you can type in questions and hit send, and that'll get them off to us, and we'll be able to take a look at them. So as I mentioned, this is our second part of talking with attractions that have reopened. We got a lot of feedback last week when we asked what you wanted to hear about, and it was hearing about more attractions reopening. So we're super glad that we're able to do that. Just to run through the agenda real quick, we're probably going to have about a 90-minute discussion here where we'll have our panelists talking about what they've experienced. We'll have the questions that you bring up, and we'll have a really good discussion there. So we do encourage you to participate in that. I'd like to ask if we have any members of the press that may be joining us today. If you could just drop a note into the question and answers with your name and maybe your publication. We would encourage, if there's anything from today's webinar that you wanted to use for any pieces that you're working on, please reach out to us. We'll make sure that we connect you with the right panelists so that they can help in responding to anything that you may want to utilize. So today is our 12th webinar, and we used to put all of the topics up here of what we've gone through over the last several webinars, but it's actually become too many for a slide. So instead, being a big fan of word clouds, I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what are some of the things that we're talking about. And really what it is a bi-weekly gathering of attraction industry experts where we talk about current challenges and how we're going to position our attractions for success. So it's a lot of best practice sharing, learnings, focusing on that guest experience, that employee experience, and bringing financial results to the table. So we hope you enjoyed today's presentation, and we want to encourage you to come back for our future webinars. So our next one will be on June 17th. And you can always find out information about those by going to gatewayticketing.com/community. That's where we'll have information about those webinars, some Tuesday talks that dive into some of the detail of the Galaxy ticketing system, and just really great ways that you can participate. With all that, we'll start some introductions. I am Matthew Hohenstein. I am with Gateway Ticketing Systems, and I'm our principal of destinations. Joining me today is my colleague, Randy, who is also one of our principals.
Hey, welcome everybody. Hey, Matthew, it's good to see you again on the webinar.
Yes, sir.
We have moved to bi-weekly, and I really have been looking forward to regathering and saying hello to everybody and talking to some great panelists. As you mentioned, this is an opportunity to share in our community, and we have two wonderful panelists that can share their reopening story with us and answer some questions. So I'm excited that Elizabeth Rizzuto is joining us from Xtreme Action Park. Elizabeth is the managing director. Hey, Elizabeth. We had an opportunity to chat with you and meet you and your team, a number of weeks ago, and I'm so pumped to hear more about Xtreme Action Park. And if you guys don't know, it's a huge facility. It's over 200,000 square feet. They've been open in their current form since 2015, but it's a great story, and Elizabeth's going to share some wonderful information today. Also joining us is a great friend, Jose Espinosa from the Fort Worth Zoo. Hey, Jose. Jose and Elizabeth are both joining us from their offices, so it's great to see you guys working. I think Jose is here in the conference room. The Fort Worth Zoo is over 100 years old, Jose. I don't think that the conference room existed back then. You guys are one of those handful of what I like to call the centennial zoos in America, where they've been open for, well, actually many more years, over 100 years. So it's great to have you joining us today and share how your reopening went. Behind the scenes, we have Bill D'Angelo. He's going to help us out answering some questions. I see that Mark from Park Vault is joining us. Hey, Mark, any questions you guys might have, just put them in the Q&A, and Bill is going to do his best to move things along. As we like to start, we like to take a moment to share a little bit of what's going on in our industry. It's been 2 weeks since we regathered, so we're going to pass it off to Matt. He's got some stories to share about some reopenings around the world.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of great positive things to talk about. I unfortunately will start with one of the negative things. We have seen a very, very small amount, but some attraction closures that have happened again. Specifically, that was in Seoul, South Korea. They were responding to an uptick that they started to see in coronavirus cases. There was actually a situation where at Lotte World Adventure Park, one of the guests that visited was diagnosed as positive after they had visited. So what we saw there was that attraction closing down, doing some very intense cleaning, and then actually just reopened yesterday. So it was only a couple-day closure there for Lotte World versus some of the museums have actually closed now for just a 2-week kind of reset period. So wanted to make sure that folks were aware of that. But then on the flip side of that, we've also seen some large attraction openings. So I hail from Orlando, Florida, and one of my hometown attractions just reopened here recently, and that was Universal Orlando Resort. And so what you see a lot of images there from is their video that kind of help to set expectations with guests on what the experience is going to be when they visit. There's been some articles written in our local paper about kind of that good experience. And one of the interesting things that I wanted to point out that we saw come from Universal Orlando was the not necessarily doing reservations to visit the park. So there in the kind of the middle of the screen, you'll see a note that's on their website where they're currently limiting attendance at their theme parks. But they're doing it in the ways that, prior to, creating reservations and things like that, we used to always do it, is that once the park reaches capacity, we, no longer allow folks in. So I think that it's going to be really interesting to learn from their experience. And I anticipate what they did was looked at and saying, hey, we have a pretty large capacity, even but with reducing it. And we believe that we can manage it based on the demand that we're going to be able to see without necessarily having to put in that step in front and require folks to make reservations. So some interesting developments there. Oh, Randy, I think you may be muted.
I'm trying to get to the mute button here. I'm juggling some things around here. I'm really excited too about an attraction here in Tennessee where I live. This is in Pigeon Forge, but the Titanic reopened. Really, in fact, I just read a great letter today from an employee who works at the Titanic that shared their experience as they reopened. And you could see here that they were very excited to reopen. They have the masks and the safeguards in place. But what really struck me about the letter is that it's very important to reopen, not just for your guests, but for your employees. And to see the joy of reopening in the words from this employee was pretty heartfelt. And so they've been able to reopen, and they did some really unique things that we'll probably share as we get going, and the very typical things as well that we've been seeing. Some floor markers, some signage. You can see there's with the officer here by the front double doors, there's a signage in the background, and then the parking lot is right there. They've changed they're doing time ticketing, Matthew, to control their attendance because it's an indoor building. And not like Universal that has all this space, or a smaller space indoors, and they're using time ticketing as well to allow a certain number of visitors into the attractions, both in Branson, Missouri, and here in Gatlinburg or Pigeon Forge, Tennessee.
Great. And then jumping over to Europe into Denmark, Tivoli just recently reopened. Some exciting things that I noticed there was one, making sure that folks had access to a ton of information on their website. One of those being, hey, when are the best times to arrive to minimize lines at the front gate? If you're familiar with their park, they're located in the heart of Copenhagen, and there could certainly be congestion between the roads and the entrance. So one of the things they exposed on their website was just kind of a timetable to let folks know, hey, when's the best time to arrive? And then within the park, they instituted kind of that virtual line with their digital amusement line, incorporating that within their app to kind of help manage the attraction waiting as well.
And Matthew, that's another thing that's a real trend. I mean, we all know that we're doing it. Elizabeth's going to share a little bit of her story, but putting out a special web page and focusing on what the expectations are for your guests is we all knew it was going to come to this, but starting to see what everyone is doing, it's really great information. I think you can just go out and look at the reopening pages of any attraction and glean some really good ideas. So Blackpool Pleasure Beach, also in Europe, has announced their reopening dates. I believe it's July 4th. It's very kind of them to celebrate our independence on that special day. But it's looking like July 4th is the day that Blackpool Pleasure Beach is going to open. I have a couple news articles that we'll reference in the links, but definitely go to COVID, blackpoolpleasurebeach.com, and you can see a great resource of all of the methods that Blackpool is undergoing to protect you, what to expect during the visit. And this is a theme that you're going to continue to see over and over again. Also, really great news specific to the UK is that the zoos have been extremely hard hit. Many campaigns, Chester Zoo here is showcasing one of their campaigns, is that they were really struggling and spending $500,000 to £1 million a month to just keep care of the animals. So a lot of campaigns have gone forward, and they actually have a new reopening date for zoos in the UK and other outdoor attractions of June 15th. So this is actually just breaking news. I think this is from today. So you would expect many, many more zoos to be scrambling to reopen and get ready in the UK and in other parts of Europe. And to echo that, this is also hot off the presses just this morning. I'm really excited because we have so many friends, and they've been joining our calls the last few months here on these webinars. But the San Diego Zoo and Safari Park, they announced their reopening on June 20th. Another great resource to go to is zoo.sandiegozoo.org/reopen, and you can see all their information about what to expect as they reopen. I'm going to zoom in on a couple of things. This is what their webpage looks like right now, roaring back. It's a nice message there. And then they've got, I love this picture of the rhinos running, like it's like they're running to the reopening. They've shown some real pictures of what their environment looks like right now. You can see that they've dedicated some exit-only lines, entrance-only lines, focus those in green. They've got the new imaging here, the signage that's hanging, and then, of course, some of the typical things we've been seeing about maintaining some spacing and distances. So some good information there. Also, announcements in the last 24 hours or so. Cedar Fair's announced their reopening dates. The fun's coming back June 22nd to World of Fun. Schlitterbahn is actually opening just in a few days. These announcements just went through. And then the parks in Ohio are going to open for the Independence Day holiday around July 2nd. Something that's very trendy for the water park space. This is a really difficult time for water parks because, you don't have a full season. You've certainly lost a good chunk of your prime season. As you move into a very hopeful reopening, we are starting to see that the season pass messaging is really moving in the direction of, buy now, come next year. So they're taking advantage of that right now to encourage people to buy season passes. And so you can see there's an opportunity here to buy the pass for 2 years with it looks like a souvenir refill cup for the $127. want to pass it back to you, Matthew, for some really the evolution of the reopenings, like how some of these places are reopening in stages and new offerings.
Yeah, so one of the first large parks that we saw reopen was Shanghai Disney Resort, and initially, they had a very conservative number of folks they were letting into the park, and many of or all of their indoor shows were not open. Just 2 or 3 weeks after opening, that is one of the things they've added into the available attractions now are shows are pictured here. So I think really kind of what this helped me to notice was, one, planning for, a phased reopening, maybe not necessarily having to do everything on the first day. And really the goal there is focusing on making sure that what we do open up, we do it right and we get it right. And then we slowly add on to that and we just continue having success. I think one of the things we also heard from other attractions, though, but that is somewhat in line with this, is really making sure that we're focusing on profitability. And that may also mean that we need to rotate our attractions in a way that we normally haven't done so before. So, we may not be at a level where we can operate profitably with all of our attractions open all at the same time. But is there different ways that we can look at that and maybe, rotate through them and not necessarily open them all with park opening, but rotate folks around so that we can deal with the fact that we have limited attendance, but make sure that we still deliver an experience that they enjoy and do it profitably. The next item was that we're also seeing is that obviously in the United States, masks are very polarizing, but there are some areas where attractions are requiring it. I think that in conjunction with the regulations in that area maybe are encouraging it. But one of the things that we are seeing is that in those situations where they're requiring it, they're also making sure that we have areas where folks do not necessarily have to have their mask on. So here at Universal Orlando Resort, there's the U-Rest area, which is kind of an area that's outside that is segregated and folks are allowed to take masks off. SeaWorld and Disney World have both announced that when they reopen that they'll have similar areas. One of the other things is that we're just seeing that some attractions that are operating a little bit differently. So over at Universal Studios Japan, taking away maybe the high fives and the hugs and operating a little bit differently, but still making sure that those important elements of the attraction are available of seeing those great characters. The Museum of Fine Arts in Houston, one of the things that I think that was important to note there was them really focusing on their core mission. They're obviously their core mission is delivering a lot of great art pieces to everyone to be able to view. And that's really when they reopened, one of the things they focused on, not necessarily the food and beverage offering and some other things, but really focusing on what's the core mission, delivering really well on that.
Thank you so much, Matthew. Great information and great questions coming in. And I want to say hi to Ella from Blue Loop. How you doing? We have some questions about website reservations. We're definitely going to talk about that. I put that on the radar. And I really like this. We had a question from Melissa, and it's so appropriate as we introduce Elizabeth. But Melissa was talking about, hey, with indoor attractions and museums, what is it looking like? What is the attendance looking like? Are the buildings crowded? And so, I don't know the exact square footage of the Titanic Museum. We'll try to get that for you. But as we talk to Elizabeth and discuss the reopening, it's going to be interesting to hear a little bit about what museums are seeing and what they're doing. So I'm gonna jump ahead to Melissa from Xtreme Action Park. And Melissa, you guys had some really cool press just, it looks like today, announcing your reopening from one of the trades here, Replay. And so why don't you give us a little bit of information about Xtreme Action Park and how the reopening's gone? What did you guys do? I'm really anxious to hear. And the reason why it's so important, I think it's important for me to share. A lot of us here, we've done polls about when are people reopening, and it's interesting to see that a lot of us here on these webinars, they're still planning. They're not going to reopen for 4 to 8 weeks. So the audiences here are the most of them are going to see that reopening then. But some of them, including the announcements we just made, they might only have a week or two to reopen. So we'd love to hear your insights at Xtreme Action Park on what did you guys do. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Xtreme Action Park and your reopening? Oh, you're muted. We'll turn you off there.
Can you hear me? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So thank you. So Xtreme Action Park, we are the largest indoor entertainment venue down here in South Florida. We have over 200,000 square feet of open air space. Our ceilings are nice and high, 29-foot ceilings. So it's a nice open airy park. It's great in Florida because it gets so hot. So we get a lot of people during the summer, and every afternoon when it rains, it's beautiful. But that being said, as you can see on the map, we have everything. We have go-kart racing indoor, the only asphalt indoor racetrack. We have laser tag, roller skating. We have a trampoline park. We have bowling. We have escape rooms, virtual reality. I mean, you could see there's an endless amount. So deciding how to open all of these activities, controlling capacity, how do we make this safe, right? I mean, it's a lot. There's a lot of space. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of signs that need to be made. So we weren't sure exactly what was going to happen, being especially in South Florida. We weren't sure when we were going to open by phases. We weren't sure what we were going to be allowed to open. We just kind of watched and absorbed everything that we could as far as capacity rules or regulations. And then we just all kind of got together and said, we need to figure out how to do this right. I mean, learning what we did about the virus and what was happening, how do we do this? So the creativity was a lot of our team, a lot of what we've seen, a lot of, webinars with you guys. I mean, just understanding how to prepare. So we started making signs. We started, and we got a date, June 3rd, that's our opening date. Now it was on. And with that, we only opened the go-kart track and the roller skating rink and the cafe. So we figured we'd start small. Those were our biggest attractions. We were monitoring analytics to see, what are people looking for, because they are looking. They were finally going back to our website, and so we could see what they were looking at, and go-karting and roller skating. So we figured those are the safest to open right away. And that was kind of like the mindset there. Then all the changes that we made. If you want to, maybe we'll go to some of the signs, or I know you're talking, but I can't hear you.
I muted myself again. I definitely want to talk about signage, but I'm before we get there, one of the things I really love about this story is that looking at this list here, so many, I mean, if you're a zoo, if you're a museum with a lot of interactives, if you're, when Jose gets to talk, he's going to talk a little bit about, I know they have a lot of attractions. What I love about Xtreme Action Park is that you have all the elements that the biggest theme parks have, the smaller FECs have, zoos and aquariums and museums. So really being able to watch and learn and see what you did is really going to help everybody in our communities, because you have a little bit of everything. And I love that about, I mean, I'm looking here at your food locations, because every single aspect of your business was impacted by COVID. And I think your signage is great. I'm gonna jump ahead here to the next sign. I mean, you're a marketer, so of course signage is going to be front and center. But you guys did a great job of really just, I mean, it looks like you probably spent days and nights printing and laminating. So let's talk about your sign package and what you guys did there.
Right. So, as we all know, people don't read signs. We know it, right? So we tend to lean towards colors and shapes, right? So what will attract their attention? So the park itself is large and has a lot of bright colors, a lot of graffiti art, a lot of lights and different colored lights. So we found yellow. We just went yellow. Yellow is a safety color, and yellow you can see on our polished concrete floors, and yellow will stand out in the park. So we made everything related to safety and reminding and importance for them to notice in yellow. So we got a lot of yellow paper. We did a lot of printing. But yeah, we have a really awesome graphic artist on our team, and he made these custom people, all types of people, and they are all wearing their masks. And it kind of it pushed the focus too on our clean team. This year, this is great. As you can see, the yellow pops on the at the track. This is our cadet track. So this is right here. We put up the sneeze guard in between where our team member is, and then we have the reminder signs. And then at every location, at every attraction, we put in specific rules that parents or attendees or anybody can read that says, this is what we're doing. Also on the website. So we basically furthered it not only before you arrive, but while you're at the park. Let's say you didn't read it. We want to show it to you. We want you to know this is what we're doing. And we are making sure that we're doing everything that's on that list. That is our checklist. That is what we're offering you, the guests, to ensure that, everything that we can possibly do to keep you safe. So, and of course, reminding them, please wear your face mask and wash your hands and stay 6 feet apart. But this one is a good example of the specifics at the track.
And that's great because we did have a message here from Kathleen saying, what is the scheduling and cleaning procedures in place? And I think what I love here is you're just, you advertise exactly what these are the procedures. This is what you're doing. So to answer that, do you have, in addition to in between every ride or at certain times during the day, are you making mask changes or cleaning, or is it just that you're just every time there's a ride cycle, you're going to clean the area? And we also have a question about your theater, about handling theater and the laser gun. So do you mind kind of sharing a little bit about your theater and your cleaning there?
Sure, absolutely. So just to help with that, when we opened just last week. Last week was our first full week. Wednesday through Sunday, we did limited hours and limited shifts. Basically to allow a team to work all those hours. This week is now we're opening day one, Wednesday, all of our other attractions, excluding ropes course, and I can get into that a little bit later. But so XD is opening today, along with the arcade, the laser tag, the virtual reality, and laser tag at XD, VR games, and yeah. Oh, bowling. We're doing bowling too. So there's so many I can't keep up. But but basically for XD, we have designated an entrance and an exit. It's a shame I took a photo today. I should have sent it to you. But there's an entrance and an exit. There's steps outside, to keep people waiting in queue. We have sanitized 3D glasses on the counter available for guests to grab. They're laid out so they can grab them on their own. And then while they go in, just their group. Ours is small. Our only, our XDC 8 people. So they go in with their group. Obviously, if you have larger groups, you can separate your seats and so on. They play the game, and then we have a basket that they drop their used ones in, to which we sanitize. Our team will sanitize using gloves and masks and all that. They'll clean it and then have it prepared for the next. So we have 2 sets interchangeable. They also go in and clean all the laser, the guns and the seats and wipe it down in between. I mean, that's the most we can do for that space, and we're going to do it. It's just going to take longer. We're just going to be patient, and it's just going to take a little bit longer, but we're going to process it as we need to.
Well, I also want to point out that a little bit here, I love that you're just selling helmets too, because there's going to be people that are just like, I'm coming here enough. I'm going to race for a while. I don't want to go through this process. I'm just going to bring my own helmet. You can buy your own helmet. You can buy your own hand sanitizer.
Right.
It's interesting because sometimes people would say, oh, you're just profiting off of this, what's going on. But the reality is that there are people, and I'm going to point to myself, that'll just say, no, I'm just, during this time period, I want to enjoy this. I want to have fun, but I want to do it my way, and I'm willing to pay. I'm excited to get on the track, and I'm buying my own helmet.
Yes. And that was just, I'm glad you caught on. That is exactly what that was for. There are some people that just want to their own. And we have that option available, which was good. We actually had a surplus of our inventory that we allocated to sell for anybody that wanted to.
I have a couple more shots of your kiosks and this is the clean team. Is that they're wearing the yellow safety vests?
Yes, this was one of our favorite projects in all of this. We designated, so normally our cleaning crew wears a very grayish colored shirt. You kind of don't want to see the cleaning crew, right? I mean, in any facility, normally they're just kind of in the background doing what they have to do behind the scenes. But now with all of this, we want to see the cleaning crew. So we got vests, and we actually labeled them Xtreme Clean Team. And their purpose is to be there in the face of the customer, available at any time for a complimentary wipe down, for an extra cleaning. What we did is we put them on, we have designated people that will roam certain zones of the park, but also in every department we'll have somebody there. So it makes it difficult for staffing, but for now, some people are doing a little bit of a double duty. As we grow and have more hours and have more team members come back, we can hopefully keep this team more independent. But for now, like my partner, I'm working the skating. So my partner, he's wearing the Xtreme Clean Team vest, and he goes out systematically and will clean all of the railings in the skating rink. And again, is there identifiable, willing to help, willing to give an extra cleaning, because the truth is you don't know if it's clean unless you see it clean, right? So if that guest wants that extra effort of, hey, do you mind? I'd feel better seeing that you just swipe. Absolutely, let's do it. So we do it a lot. That's why the sanitizer stations are right there, so a guest can see. Look, I'm washing my hands, and then I'll take your card. I'll swipe your card. I'm giving it back, right? So it's all very open and in your face, and it needs to be right now, and that's fine. And I hope it continues that way. To be honest, I don't mind if we can keep it up. Let's keep it up.
So, Elizabeth, obviously that's a lot of newness that you're talking about, right? That you weren't doing before. What did you do to kind of prepare the team for that? I mean, how did you kind of implement this new way of operating?
It was really a team effort. A lot of our team, we listened to our team. A lot of our team, when we started planning our reopening, we brought them in together, and they had a lot of these ideas too. And they wanted to do it. They wanted to make the guests feel welcome. They wanted to be able to have the ability to clean as needed. They understand what's going on. And I think, like I said, a lot of these ideas came from them. So it was easy to train. It was easy to get it implemented because they wanted to do it. And it made sense. This slide here, this is great. The girl in the picture, she was just fun. I thought it was a funny photo. So basically, this was during one of our training days before opening. We started spacing out the tables in our food court, and two of our team members just happened to sit down at the table, and I thought it was a nice photo to kind of demonstrate about how spacing is and what we're doing in the park, how we're separating. On the table are those little cards that we made that shows, this table is sanitized, this table is waiting to be sanitized, kind of, something visual again to help people see that it's been done, or in case we don't get them all the time, in case we can't wipe it down before they get there, they know that it's been wiped. Something to identify that to them. This is one of our other team members installing, more hand sanitizer stations throughout the park. But the statues, we actually brought those in. We have a bunch of statues around the park. We have like Big Boy, and we have the Kung Fu Panda. So we put them up and around to kind of help with some of the distancing and to make it not feel so empty. It was just fun. We thought we'd bring them out to keep people separated a little bit.
That's great. I love those table cards. I think what's really great about them is, obviously I've seen attractions that's like, hey, don't use this table, right? Somewhat of a negative message, but I mean, obviously we need to make sure we have the spacing. But the one that the reassurance of like, hey, I've cleaned this table and it's ready for you. I think it's a great way to instill that safety and security that folks are really wanting, even though they didn't see the person wiping the table down, right? They know that that's happened. That's great.
Yeah, we thought it was a nice touch. So this is more of the training. Like I mentioned a few days before opening, getting the staff ready, the team ready to, what the new process was. Because we're reopening with a smaller crew, just to give you an idea, we had over 200 team members prior to COVID, and we are now at 64. So hence the limited hours and limited days until we can rebuild. But getting everybody on the same page, we did a walk around. We personally tested every single operation at every single attraction. So, you'll see us stand in line, go in, put on vests, take the vest off, see where the natural instinct was, like, hey, do I want to hand my vest to somebody or do I want to drop it on this table to have less interaction? So we kind of hands-on worked a lot of that out. There's another fun photo of one of our statues we put in to help separate the arcades. We had to move all of the arcade games around the park. We actually spread them out. So things like our arcade manager, Jerry, did a great job. So things like skee ball, right? The skee ball is normally right next to each other, right? We have 4 or 5 of them lined up. We fanned them out. I don't have a photo, but we fanned them out. So literally standing with our arms 6 feet apart so that we made sure we had enough of a fan. So someone standing at the end playing skee ball was still 6 feet away from somebody else playing skee ball. So we found an extra 2,500 square feet in the back part of the park. I say found because we just had a matter of cleaning it up and painting some walls. And we reallocated a bunch of our big games back there to also allow for social distancing. So we really spread out the arcade to get it ready. I'm excited today to see how people respond and react to that because today is, like I said, is the start of all of that opening. So we're excited to see how it goes.
It's really exciting. I'm just hearing about it.
I know. We did a lot of work, and I'm really proud of our team. I mean, we did everything we said we were going to do. So, and that's another thing. We had to, as part of our opening, we had to submit a safety plan to the mayor. And in that plan, we decided, as we're writing everything down of what we were doing, we started documenting it, and we said, okay, here, this is what we're doing. So then we took that and we posted it, and that's the perfect slide. We put it right online. And we said, why not? Here, everybody needs to know. There's going to be some that care. There's going to be some that don't care. But at least we're making it public and known. This is what we're doing. These are the steps we're taking. So the website, you can see, I see you zoomed in on, has the standard kind of, this is, we expect you to help and everybody keeping each other healthy. So by wearing a face mask and so on. Also talking about the Xtreme Clean team and who they are and where they are and how you can find them and how they can help you. Talking about the signs, but also breaking out into each of the activities and what we're doing in each of those. It was very important for us to make that as clear as possible, put people at ease. We just, marketing, I love it. We had fun, it's a lot of words, but that's why you got to put some great pictures in there to really get it across. So,
well, I would tell you the graphics that really bring all this together, these little graphics that you talked about and you showed that the little characters and their masks, they tie it all together. And getting a couple questions for you. And what we're going to do is we will send everybody the links that are in your presentations. Everybody can just go to your website, I'm sure, and find them. But we like to send a little email after our webinar, so we will include links to see these in a little bit more up close. You do have, I love, some of your it's time to get ready to go play.
Yeah.
I love the periods after clean, safe, fun. I love the messaging there and some articles here. So it sounds like it was a real great success.
Yeah. I mean, it was. We opening just with the limited attractions, I think, was very smart. We all agree. We were talking about this morning. We all thought that it was very smart. We had a good turnout. We had 2,300 people that came in over the course of the 5 days. They all had an amazing experience. Those first customers that come back, you really want to wow them, and the team felt comfortable in their new roles. Everybody was able to give the service that we needed to give, so it was great. Like I said, this week is even more exciting. I almost wish I could talk to you guys again next week and tell you how it went, because with having everything open, we're really happy to see how it goes. Because some people were complaining. They're like, "What do you mean only go-karting? Why not the arcade? Why not VR? I want to do other things." So, it's nice to see that people want to come back. So.
That's great, Elizabeth. There's been a couple questions that have been coming in that I just wanted to ask you about a little bit. One is, so obviously you mentioned at the tracks that you have a procedure in place for cleaning like the helmets and things like that. And obviously at the theater, you'll have a situation where you'll clean the glasses. So far, what has been the guest feedback into the procedures that you have in place for sanitizing, like those the helmets and things like that?
Positive. It's very visible. Again, I wish I gave you more photos, but like for the racetrack, when a guest exits the track, we have a designated table for them to put their helmets that have been used, and it says used. And then our team will go in and meticulously sanitize, clean, and move it to the next station, which is, ready, right? Clean and ready. So, we have this cool rack system where it actually, they sit on their own individualized hooks, and they have this vacuum that tends to dry them and take out any odors. So we store them there. So it's very forward-facing and visual, which is important. So the feedback has been excellent, actually. They love seeing it.
That's great. One of the other questions that had come in from Chris was the tape that you're using on the floor. Any secret to what tape that is that you've been using for the social distancing boxes, like at the kiosks?
Honestly, our arcade manager happened to have a stash of this textured yellow tape. And we went to go get more of it, but we ended up ordering masking tape by mistake. So we used the yellow masking tape to hang the signs so it wouldn't peel the paint. But that floor tape is incredible. It's like I said, it's a textured, kind of thick tape, but you can find yellow duct tape. And that was the other thing. This park is big. And those signs, those floor stickers, they're expensive. I mean, they're a lot of money to get custom made. So we got smart and we used yellow tape. Again, it pops on the floor. You can see it. And if you space it out just right, it works. And we had a lot of square footage to cover. So it works beautifully.
That's great. Elizabeth, I think we're going to have some more questions coming up in a little bit. But Randy, I think we wanted to talk with Jose a little bit.
Absolutely. Hey, Jose, man, zoos, as you know, are near and dear to my heart. And so I'm actually going to our local zoo next week. And I jumped online, made reservations, did what I had to do because, I've got a lot of kids that want to get outside and see the zoo. And you guys were closed for, I don't know how many months it was, just like everyone else. But why don't you tell us the story of reopening the Fort Worth Zoo?
So we were actually closed for about 72 days. We closed on March 13th on our second week of spring break. That's when it actually started hitting our area. And obviously, spring break is a huge season for us. Luckily, we got the first one, so that was good for our revenue. Now, we actually were at the mercy of our regulation from state government officials and from our local county officials. At the beginning, the county officials had put really strict policies as far as not being able to go out, no more groups of 100 people or more couldn't be together, and stuff like that. But around May 18, that's when we got word that we were going to be allowed to open. We had a restriction of 25% capacity that we could implement on our park. That meant that we were going to have to implement, like other facilities, a reservation system. So one of the main goals at the beginning was to ensure that we got this message out, because This is something new, especially for our members. This was going to involve our members, and it was going to be a huge change for them that they're going to have to select a date and a specific time to come and visit us at the zoo. So we worked really hard with the marketing team in getting all the guidelines set up and all the information that we wanted to share with our guests. We used our social media, whether it was Twitter, Facebook, our website. We actually rerouted our web store links. What we did is we created a landing page with all the information about our reopening strategy and our guidelines and what we were going to do moving forward. And so ticketing was actually going to be done through that landing page. So if you click on, even if you click on the buy ticket button on our main page, it actually takes you to our landing page, and then from there you have to make the reservation. So we wanted the guests to see the information before they even got their tickets, especially with the members, because it's something that was new for them. We also, in the past, members would buy the tickets on site. We actually, for the guests, if they had a guest, they get a $3 discount. And what we did is we added those tickets to the member page. On our website, we were able to, using the Galaxy Visual ID for the membership cards, we were able to create a separate membership page where they could go and make their pre-reservation tickets. So this one right here. So they just enter their ID, their last name, and then it grants them access to the page below. The members are free. Obviously, we don't charge for those, but we had to be able to restrict that to just members only. And the buttons to the right is for their guests. So they can buy make their own reservations and the tickets for their guests. They can do everything on our website. When we opened, we actually did a 3-day member preview on the 26th, 27th, and the 28th of May. We actually started at a lower capacity than 25% for those preview days. We ramped it up to 25%. So we started at 2,000 the first day, 3,000 the second, and then 4,000 for the last member preview. Then the fourth day was the 29th of May, and that's when we went to the 25% capacity. One of the things that we also did is we extended our hours of operation. Before, we opened every day at 10 a.m., but we moved it up to 9 a.m. just to give everyone an extra hour to spread out the crowds, and that way we could enforce social distancing a little bit better and promote that. We had, at the beginning, 3 time slots. So we had the 9 to 12, 12 to 2, and 2 to 4. So guests would select from one of these 3 time slots, and this was their arrival window. So they could arrive anytime between 9 to 12, or 12 to 2, or 2 to 4. And this was just so that we could spread out our 25% capacity, just to ensure that we could also have a turnover. So the 9 to 12 group, on average, a zoo visit is 2.5 to 3 hours. So around 11:30 to 12, you would start to see a group of people already starting to leave, and we would have a good turnover for the next time slot, especially because we have limited paved parking at the zoo. So this also allowed us to be able to turn over the parking lot as well. When it came to the guest relations office, as you see at the bottom, we actually, our member services office is shared with the guest relations office. Now, when we reopened the park, one of the things that we did is we closed all our ticket booths on site. So if you want to purchase a ticket to come to the zoo, you have to do everything online right now, just to, ensure that we reduce the amount of interaction between us and the guest. So we utilized our main ticket booth that was going to be closed. We used it to move our guest relations office and to split the queue. That allowed us to then, we anticipated a lot of demand for our member services because we were going to have members that needed to get their picture taken because our membership cards had their pictures and all that. So we moved guest relations to the main ticket booth. They are handling will call, lost and found. We also do something similar to City Pass. It's called Pogo Passes, and they have to check in at guest relations to get their zoo tickets. So we moved all that there, and we also used it as an online ticketing customer service window. So it allows us to, any issues that a guest may have when it comes to online ticketing, they can go to the main ticket booth to that window and be able to be taken care of. We've added a lot of signage, and we've made a lot of changes to the way we operate. we've actually had to implement a one-way in and one-way out of the zoo setup. So in the past, in this picture you see the ticket booth there, you could go on either side of the ticket booth and enter the front plaza and then proceed to the scanning stations. Well, now we've had to do where the right side of the main ticket booth is our entrance to the zoo, and then the left side is exclusive as an exit. So we were able to utilize the monitors that were used for pricing in the past. We've changed them now to just indicate, okay, to enter the park, go to the right, member services to the right, Pogo Pass customer services this window in the middle, and then the exit is on the right, on the left side. So that's one of the main changes. In the gift shop, also we've had to implement in the front plaza a one-way in and one-way out setup for the main gift shop. And we have specific queue lines using barricades for member services. We have signage such as, this is in the front plaza, the one, the A-frame that you see with the, we're encouraging the 6-foot distancing, wear a mask and all that. We're also using our in-park monitors. We have monitors scattered throughout the park where we have messages about, social distancing, wearing a mask, wash your hands often, and all that. One issue that we saw here at the zoo is we don't have, for example, a mandate from the state, local government, or anything like that to wear, that forces you to wear a mask. So we have noticed that probably about 1% of our guests are actually showing up with masks. In our area, we are in Tarrant County. Pretty much, Tarrant County in Texas is almost like nothing has happened. So people are just coming in, walking into the park. They are not social distancing. They are not wearing a mask or anything like that. So, we are constantly trying to encourage it and all that, but we really cannot enforce it. And we haven't had, a lot of pushback from guests. It's been very minimal, the amount of guests that have actually made a comment about this. Some guests do get upset about, us not enforcing, people to wear a mask, but it is really not feasible. We don't have a legislation that's requiring it in the area. We also don't want to put our younger staff members, the frontline staff, in a situation where if they're trying to enforce such a policy, that they could be dealing with a confrontation. We've seen reports like that from other states where when they try to enforce it, guests have confronted the staff members, and it's not something that we want to put our staff in a situation like that.
Jose, are there any things that as part of your reopening or as part of what maybe the government is requiring that is there anything you have to enforce as a condition of being able to remain open?
The only things that we were initially required was to maintain the capacity management. And
okay.
Yeah, we had also, for example, we have restaurants and indoor facilities that were also restricted. So when we opened the park, we couldn't open our indoor exhibits, such as the Museum of Living Arts or the Primates building. So the animals in those exhibits were outdoor viewing only, if that was available. We are now, this Friday is when we're going to be able to start opening some of our indoor areas that have a way to do a one-way in and one-way out. So those are opening, but we still have one exhibit is the penguin exhibit that we cannot open because there's really no easy way. The way it's set up, it encourages, social gatherings, so we cannot open that one. But the ones that we are getting ready to open, we were just this last Wednesday is when they released the latest guidelines for the state. Our capacity has now increased to 50% that we're allowed to do. And so we're getting ready now to start reopening, like I said, the indoor areas that were closed, such as our primate building, our reptile house. And we're also going to be able to restart our parrot feeding. So you could do Parrot Paradise, have feeding for the birds, and we are going to restart that now. But we still have to do capacity management in those buildings.
Jose, we've gotten a lot of great questions coming in, so I'm gonna pivot around here for a little bit because I know you have more to share. We had a question about how you're dealing with people not able to necessarily purchase online, or maybe they don't have a credit card. And I think you had kind of touched on it, but you had said that you have reserved, I believe, some space available to people that are purchasing on site, and you have a dedicated window for them. Is that right?
Yes, yeah. So what we're doing is we anticipated this, especially because our web store has a pretty strict fraud prevention setup. So any discrepancies in your credit card, and it will definitely not accept it. So we split our capacity into a general admission, members, and then our miscellaneous category. So we actually set aside under the miscellaneous a portion of our daily capacity, and then other ticket booths, that center window that has the online ticketing issues or customer service, they can go there, and if they call us, or reach us through social media or anything like that, if they're having issues, we'll definitely send them to that window. We've also had to do that because one issue that we ran into is nowadays a lot of people rely on Google. So they go to Google to find information about the zoo, whether we're open, we're not, pricing, and all that. At that point, they're bypassing our webpage, so they might not be aware that there's a reservation requirement. So we've had a lot of people that actually just show up because they say, "Oh, I saw you're open." So then we have to let them know, unfortunately, we are dealing with capacity issues, so we have to make reservations. So I don't want to turn away a family that's driven for an hour or two just to get here, especially because, I don't want to make kids cry. So we do go ahead and allow them to, if we have available capacity, to buy the tickets on site. They can definitely use our mobile web store to do so. But even then, we can also take care of them at our window here in the ticket booth. And we've done so last Sunday, for example. It was a really good example of this. For whatever reason, this last Sunday, we had a ton of people from out of town that went to alternate websites to get information about the zoo. So they were coming in. We accommodated that day 286 guests that we sold at that window throughout the day, because they bypassed, they didn't even know that we had reservations at this time. So yeah, we've been accommodating those.
Great. I have a couple more questions for you as well. First, I just want to make a comment how clean your digital signage is here in this view. I love just using the left monitor for turn left, the right monitor for turn right, and the middle monitor. And a lot of times when I've seen digital signage, for the most part, it's just replicating the same data. So it was a really simple way for you to use those in a clean manner. So I love that. I think you've answered a little bit more. We had some questions. Randy Smith asked about the 25 to 50% threshold, and that's because that was a state mandate that you are now able to move into the 50 percentile. And then you also mentioned we had some questions about face coverings, and in our earlier conversation, I think you had said, yeah, of course we want people to wear masks. I believe all your staff is wearing masks, but you're really seeing about 1%. And you're happy with that because you didn't want to put, I think you had said, like a 16-year-old in that position to have to ask somebody to leave. But I want to ask both Elizabeth and Jose, and I can see there's some answers in the chat, but how has that gone for both of you? Let's start with Elizabeth. Has there been any major issues with people concerned about face coverings?
Not at all. Here it's required, and it's required in South Florida in general now. Now, if that gets changed, then we might have to look at making it optional, but our team members are all wearing masks, and if anybody shows up without a mask, we have them available for sale. Thankfully, no issues so far.
And then Jose, are you selling masks even though they're not required?
Yeah, so we do, at our gift shop, we do have masks available for purchase. We have animal print ones, and then we have zoo logo masks. But yeah, so in our county, it is not required. And the county next to us, which is Dallas County, they got hit hard by the COVID epidemic, and they do have requirements for wearing masks. But in our county, we didn't see that same impact. And almost pretty much everyone in our county, they're just going about their business as if it was normal. So it's not a requirement. People are not wearing it. We do encourage it. We're very clear with our guests when we open that we encourage the mask, but It is not a requirement to come to the zoo. And we do, however, make all of our staff members wear a mask at all times.
Hey, Jose, I wanted to drill in just a little bit on the capacity question for just a moment. So one of the things that we saw kind of in Asia was some of the governmental agencies were coming out and saying, hey, you need to limit capacity to 30%. But they didn't really give clarity on what that was 30% of. Like, is that 30% of a design day? Is that 30% of your average attendance? In your situation, kind of what was that percentage that you're limiting attendance based on? How did you calculate that?
So it pretty much was based on our highest attendance number, closer to that. That was how we based our 25% capacity. And then, but we had absolutely no guidelines whatsoever as to, for our kind of facility, there was no, occupancy level or anything like that. There was no guidelines like that.
Got it.
As a follow-up to that, and there's a profitability, sustainability question, and I think what was really interesting, although you are moving into the 50% capacity now, that's actually really your budgeted / forecasted number for this time period. So technically, it is sustainable currently. Is that correct?
Yeah, so our budget attendance for this time of the year, it is actually closer to the 25 to 30% capacity because here in Texas, we get to 100 plus degrees and capacity, people stop coming. So we were lucky that this wasn't the case, that we didn't open like this during the spring because our numbers are much higher at that point. But yes, so this month and next month, it will definitely be more like just being hitting budget if we do hit our numbers for capacity.
Yeah, and unfortunately, and we'll talk about, I think we'll share a couple slides at the end, but unfortunately for you, April, May is just the sweet spot. I think you had mentioned Texas actually had 2 weeks for spring break this year, which it's not typical. That was new this year.
It's not typical. Normally it's 1 week, and all the districts in North Texas and usually Southern Oklahoma, which they also come to us, to visit. So normally it's like usually 1 week, but this year it was evenly split. And so we got the first week. The second week is when it started to hit some of the major counties in the area, and we lost that attendance. And then by the Friday of the second week, we were closed. And to add to that, we normally in April and May, we also deal with school field trips. And on any given day, we can have what is now our 25% capacity on just education groups. So on any given Tuesday or Wednesday, we could have 5,700 kids just visiting the zoo. And we lost 2 months worth of field trips, not to mention corporate events, weddings, et cetera. So it had a huge impact on us.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of our camps canceled, a lot of them.
Well, we're going to show some signs, but actually, Elizabeth, do you mind if I share a little bit about how you guys were trending? And I think you had a graph, some data about your revenue summary for that time period.
Our 1 week, sure. Our 1 week open.
Yeah, so I'll jump to that slide. 1 second. So this is really, this is your typical 2019, and then obviously you were closed at week 75 or so. Right.
So that's only the first 6 months. The summer is actually one of our biggest peaks. At summer, winter break, and spring break. Those are our jumps. So, it was beautiful. We were trending above last year. It was beautiful. And we closed right before spring break, March 13th. Spring break was the following week. So we lost a lot of trips, a lot of camps. And now with the summer, a lot of camps aren't even happening. There are no camps. And the few that are there, aren't really taking field trips. So we do have a couple that have booked, but nowhere near what we've done for summer. Yeah, there you can see our little itty bitty red.
but I think that little itty bitty red is like awesome. I think that you've reopened, and you could layer this on top, and you could see that, you're not having the huge spike that you had, and granted, we want that. That's probably going to be, a very specific day or a weekend or a Friday or not. But
Saturday.
to see these other days starting to move in that direction, I mean,
Yeah.
it's really hopeful. It's not like some of the attractions that we've been talking with have reopened, and they're looking around, and although they have capacity, it's not like there's a restriction that they're only seeing, just a handful of people coming in. And, that's really could be very disheartening. But on your side, you're seeing some big numbers. And Jose, that's what you're seeing too. You are seeing good numbers that are on par with your budget anyway.
We are. We've had a tremendous response from members. Like I said, members were eagerly awaiting our reopening. Our member previews, the 3 days were sold out, and that Friday was a bit of a madhouse. We had a lot of guests, not just members, but GA, general admission. And, on the weekends and on half price Wednesdays, every Wednesday it's half price at the zoo. So, for example, this morning it was the first 3 time slots. We are now starting this last Monday. We actually switched to hourly time slots when we slightly increased our attendance. And our first 3 time slots were sold out. And then our ticketing is still, like, during the day off, you can still buy tickets. And as people were running into the sold out time slots, they were then moving to the afternoon. So we were seeing our numbers for the rest of the day going up. And so we've seen some really good numbers. We've just reopened our splash park, which is also, it means that we've been bringing even more members because they're the ones that usually spend the whole summer in the splash park. So they are definitely responding to our reopening. They're coming, they're visiting us. And like I said, it's almost like we are back to normal a little bit. It's just that we're having to do the capacity management. But again, the numbers are very similar to what we would have done this time of the year anyway.
I'm glad you mentioned the splash park. So this is your splash park. You have other attractions as well. What attractions are open right now at the zoo? So the splash park.
So the splash park opened on Monday. We had a couple of issues. Mainly, we had to wait to be able to hire to staff it. Also, you had to do inspections, city inspections, and maintenance and all that, which had to be scheduled, which couldn't be done until we knew when we could open. So that was a big issue for the splash park. But it is now open. It does have a limited capacity of 100 guests, which it's pretty low. It's very low, especially for the demand that we have right now. Because, like I said, members literally camp out at our splash park the whole summer. And then we have opened the Yellow Rose Express and the Carousel. Those 2 opened when the park reopened, and they do have limited capacity. We are on the train. We're doing every other row. And then in the Carousel, we have like every other animal, so to space people out. And then we do constant cleaning of the carousel and the train between rides and all that, just to ensure that we are keeping it as clean as possible. The one attraction that we were not able to open at this time is our rock wall. So the rock wall is a little bit tricky to do the cleaning for it. So we've decided at this time that it's not going to open. We do have some areas that are also interactions between guests and some of our animals in the collection, such as the giraffe feeding. And then we also have our petting ranch. I know a lot of zoos in the country, some of them did not open those areas, but when we opened the zoo, we were able to open our giraffe feeding, and we were able to also do the petting ranch. We do have social distancing markers around the fence for the feeding area to encourage the families to stay, within 6 feet from each other. So rather than do 6 feet for it's not so much an individual, it's more for families, so 6 feet between the groups. And then in the petting ranch, we have a little bit more flexibility. We do the capacity based on the number of families that we have in there rather than individuals. And then the last attraction that we have is a special exhibit that we have currently. It's called Stingray Cove. It's an extra fee to access that exhibit, and it's the same thing as the petting ranch. We limit the number of families at any given time, because we have, they spread out along the pool where they do the interaction with the stingrays.
Gotcha. So you've had to make adjustments then in those attractions, and where you can open, you have. And you did mention the rock wall that's not open. That's correct, Jose? And
that is correct. Yeah, the rock wall was going to require a little bit more work to keep it, to do the cleaning and all that between, each climb. And unfortunately, it was just not something that we wanted to tackle at this time. So it's closed at this time.
Elizabeth, I see you shaking your head. Do you guys have rock walls and attractions like that cannot open right now?
Right. We were allowed to open the ropes course, but we chose not to. The ropes course actually goes above the arcade. It's huge. There's like 50 platforms. And we did not feel comfortable having people above us at this time. But that combined with the fact that there would have been a lot of interaction between guests and team members to get the harness on, get it fitted properly. And also, it's so many different surfaces, between the ropes and the wood, it's hard to clean, especially in between use. And then to give people gloves to go try and do it, it wouldn't have been a good experience. So we just decided to just wait on that for a little while until everybody felt more comfortable opening it up again.
That's great. Hey, Jose, I wanted to jump back to a comment that you had made, or I think right now you're only allowing folks to make reservations 3 days in advance. Is that correct?
Yes. So if you are going to visit the zoo, ticketing goes live at midnight 3 days in advance. So you have up to 3 days before the day of your visit. That's when we release the tickets. And it's been actually very helpful because with the release of new revised guidelines about every 2 weeks from the governor, then we can make the changes. So, for example, when we opened, like I said, we had the 3 time slots. Then all of a sudden last Wednesday, they released, new guidelines, which meant that the following week we were going to be able to go to 50%. And so that's when we switch our time slots and all that. So by having it just 3 days in advance, it allows us to make changes more easily. But it also ensures that, Texas weather is notorious for changing every 5 minutes. So we didn't want to run into a situation where people were making reservations or buying tickets, and then all of a sudden they couldn't come. And then we had to deal with refunds. We don't have a call center, so it's not as easy for us to be dealing with, those calls in high volumes of calls to make refunds and stuff like that. So it has worked out pretty well for us. Because, in case we have to make changes, and it allows people to be able to have a better idea whether or not they'll be able to visit the zoo on that day and that time.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. So one of the things that obviously I know, both attractions had a period of time that unfortunately they had to be closed due to the pandemic. One area I think that a lot of attractions might be looking at or considering is, their events, and either maybe creating new events to make up for some of that lost revenue, or just events that they normally would be running, like, during a Halloween season or things like that. So Jose, I'll start with you. Are there any event plans that y'all have started to make or are making or thinking about in the future?
So right now, we literally just had an event that was actually supposed to happen in May. That was Bistro. We had to cancel. There was a culinary event. And we still have some restrictions from on the reopening phases from the governor. We have some restrictions about catering, about as far as special events and event sites. So at this time, we are waiting to see if we can get further information from the government about, because right now it's not feasible to have a lot of those events that we would normally have. We in November usually have an event called Pumpkin and Pancakes, which normally has a buffet for members to come in and enjoy a breakfast at the zoo and all that. Based on the current guidelines, there's no way we can do that. So we cannot do a buffet. So it would not be feasible to host that event at this time. So unfortunately, all our plans are currently on hold until we get a better idea of what we can and cannot do moving forward. Because unfortunately, the way it is right now, the events would not be they're not feasible. You would have to have a very limited number of guests, and the amount of labor required just to make those things happen, it's not possible. We're a nonprofit, so we're having to watch how much we spend on these events and all that before we can make them happen.
Makes sense. How about you, Elizabeth, at Xtreme Action Park?
So there's 2 ways, right? So we host our own events, right? We do like our adult skate night, or we do our, our Father's Day promotions or things like that. We host our own events. And I think we could probably continue to do that. In fact, Inter Miami soccer team just found out that their season is starting again, and they actually reached out. They want to do a watch party, right? So we could safely distance them maybe in our bar area, or give them one of our private rooms for their group and just limit the capacity. We're actually actively now entertaining that idea. And then food, we've already, I completely understand, Jose, about buffets. That's a big no-no, but we can do boxed meals or boxed lunches to kind of overcome that. That's what we're doing now. We're serving only boxed items at the menu. You can choose one of 6 options, and that can be individually packaged for you. But then we also have birthday parties. So we have people now that they know we're open, we're getting calls for birthday parties and family reunions. And thankfully we have a space that we can kind of keep their group together. But yeah, it's turning back on. It's coming back to life. And I'm sure as those grow and develop, we will find ways to providing a clean, safe, and fun experience for them. We will be cleaning with our team and figuring out how to accommodate them. So yeah, we're open to it. If the public is willing and wants to do it, we will find a way to make it happen.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm glad you were talking about clean, safe, fun again, because I wanted to go back, Jose. This is a couple other examples. Obviously, we've seen these, but in terms of fun, I want to show some other signage that you guys do have, and I got to tell you, the far left one we're used to seeing, high touch areas. The happy birthday deal, I've used that. I use that all the time with my kids now. Like, happy birthday, come on now, sing it.
Right.
But I do love the little flow chart here for when you've left. Oh, here, I'll zoom in. This is on the wall when you're leaving the restroom. Is that right?
So this is the actual door for the restroom. So if you're, that's the actual door. And so yeah, it has the questionnaire. Did you do it properly? Then you can go out. Otherwise, go back and do it again.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's a fun and playful way, because there were some questions about what do we do as our for the guest experience. We don't want to be the hand washing police. We don't want to be the mask police. I've read a lot of great reports about the interactions, and 2 weeks ago we had someone share from the World War II Museum in the National World War II Museum in New Orleans, and they were the person that was assigned to make sure everyone had a mask. He was having a fun time doing it. I've seen this at Costco. I've seen this in other places. It's just if you're having fun, reminding people, that's great. But we don't want to do the negative. We want to make sure that we're giving exceptional customer service and reminding people. And I think both of you are targeting your signage is really on point there. It's really doing a great job of bringing that message home. I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about popularity. We've got data and slides that support this. Jose, you mentioned about how popular it's been. There were a couple big days. Elizabeth, we know that you've been driving some traffic to the Xtreme action part, but I want to talk about first online. We know that reservations, going online and making a reservation, a lot of us are thinking what it was like to get those concert tickets back in the day. I would go and sit and wait at a box office to get tickets. Now I got to compete virtually with thousands and thousands of people. So I want to ask, Jose, did you have any problems with maybe the members for those preview days hitting the website? What did you do to try to allow for the website purchasing reservation experience to go smoothly?
So one of the things that we started doing a lot of mass emailing the members, first of all, to try and get the message across, letting them know, what the changes were going to be, what they could expect, what the procedure was going to be as far as, making their reservation. Lucky for us, because we were going to have just the members only for those 3 the previous. Our membership program is about 50,000 members at this time, so it's not a huge, number of people. Like I know some other facilities have, over 100,000. So we actually did not run into any issues as far as the volume of ticket sales. One of the things that we did do, however, we made sure that if anyone was having any issues making the reservation, whether it was because of, the website, they just didn't know how to navigate or anything like that, we were able to take care of them on site. So we made sure that we had an area where they could go to get their reservations or their tickets, because we know we do have some members, whether we have elderly people that may not be as familiar with making a reservation, and then a lot of people that just don't have access to the computer or anything like that. So we made sure to take care of them on site. The one thing that we did run into an issue was we required the visual ID to access that reservation page for the members. So anyone who was buying a membership, our memberships are, you get the card on site when you get your picture taken. So we did have to set up a specific email account where members could email and request that information so they could go into the page. So that's one of the things that we had to do to address that particular scenario. But to be honest, for us, it was a very smooth process getting the members to go to the reservation page and all that. So we really didn't run into issues. It was very uneventful, to be honest.
That's great, Jose. And for those folks that utilize the Galaxy ticketing system, tomorrow we will be having a Tuesday talk held on Thursday at 12 noon Eastern, where we're just going to be talking about kind of preparing our web stores for potential increase in volume. So I want to encourage you to join us there if you use that. But one of the things, we're getting close on time, and one of the things I generally love to ask our panelists is, and we ask some of the folks that are attending, and we'll try to share some of those responses as well. But what is one of the things that you've learned since you've thrown open your doors, right? So obviously there's a lot of folks that are in the planning stage right now, and we all have great ideas. Obviously that's a little bit different than once the doors open and you start to do that, and the real world plays out. So Elizabeth, I'll start with you. And what's one of the things that you learned that since you opened that you may not have had planned for prior to that?
Right. So good question. So actually two things. One was our lobby is small. I don't know if you saw on the map, our venue is huge, but the lobby where people come in is very small. So we had an idea to line people outside. We have actually a ramp and then 2 ramps and then stairs. So we set up all these markers outside and welcome, please go to a new entrance, and try to get people in, that if we had to queue them up, we could do it out there. And then day 1 came Wednesday, and it poured. I mean, poured all day, and it did not work. So thankfully, we had a slow start. And people came in, and I felt bad at this point because we had redirected them down this long, avenue to get to the front door. So they probably got soaked on their way in. And, they came in, and we just, from there, we kind of moved it around, right? So we changed it up a little bit to make it easier for people to get in if it rains. And then we found on Saturday our kiosk, the picture of our kiosk where we had the yellow line separating them. That didn't work. We needed more kiosks. We couldn't keep 1 or 2 off. We couldn't. So what they did is we found plexi, more plexi, and we were able to mount the plexi between the kiosks so that now every kiosk could be used, not just as you see there in those markers. We had, maybe just a group on one. No. We needed every kiosk. Because we didn't have really online. Not a lot of our guests go online before purchasing. We're a pay to play. So a lot of them make that decision while coming in of what they want to do. So the kiosks are essential for that because they can just register and then pick their activities. So we needed everyone. So the divider in between made a huge difference, and we were able to keep distance and still utilize all of them and not keep a line and crowd of people at the front. So that was big.
It's great. So you were quick on your feet and ready to adapt. That's one of the key lessons I'm taking away.
Oh yeah.
And Matthew, it made me think, and the Titanic. When I read about the Titanic reopening in Pigeon Forge, they have a parking lot right there, and I think Elizabeth, you and I were chatting about this previously, but they use just a software. I think it's in the Q&A that our friend Carol is mentioning, but it's called Tables Ready. But I think that they use like a restaurant text messaging software so that when people arrive, they can sit in their car. And then when you are ready for them to approach and come in because of your capacity management, they would send text messages out. So that's another real adaptable way and a really good solution for maybe FECs that have a parking lot. They want people not to wait in line. They let them just sit in their car safely and come out and join the line, so to speak, using just a text messaging software. So something pretty cool that we've seen in our industry.
Right.
Jose, let me ask you, what was one of the things that you learned since reopening?
So one of the things that we quickly learned is that everyone comes in at the beginning of their time slot. So we had the 9 to 12 time slot, for example, and at 9 a.m., every single one of them was at our gate waiting to come in. And while that was fine because, we had plenty of time to get them in, but it did create a perception issue because obviously when they come in, if they see the parking lot that is already pretty packed, if they see a line at the front, they start asking, is this really 25% or whatnot? So one of the things that we did to address that, we were able to set up our tickets from the get-go so that they would scan at least 30 minutes before their time slot. So we had the option of when we reach a certain level of guests at the front plaza, we could then make the call, okay, we're going to go ahead and open the gate. So we would open the gate and do a soft opening. So we had that from the get-go. But that's one of the things that I probably would say if you're doing time slot. Even today, for example, we have hourly time slots. But what we're seeing, or at least on our end, is that at the beginning of the time slot is when all our guests are showing up. So if we have 790 guests for that time slot, you pretty much have 790 guests waiting to come in at that point. So so unfortunately, it may cause some perception issues. So we've had to take some steps to address that, such as maybe allowing them a little bit early or having more staff to try and keep them socially distanced and all that. So that is the main thing that we did learn from that.
Well, great. Well, Jose, Elizabeth, both of you, I want to thank you so much for sharing your learnings, for being kind of the folks on the front line that are experiencing this first, and then letting us know the successes and the opportunities. I think that really helps others in the industry, and we're very grateful for your participation today.
Yeah, to be here.
So, I also want to thank everybody that joined us today in the webinar. We will be doing our next webinar on Wednesday, June 17th. So go ahead and put a placeholder on your calendar. Visit us at gatewayticketing.com/community, and we will have some more information about that. Sorry, June 24th. I'm not reading my calendar right, so apologies. And we look forward to seeing you again here soon.
Thank you guys so much. Great job, everyone. And way to go. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Elizabeth, thank you. Jose, thank you. Matthew, thank you. Everybody on the Gateway team, thank you. Great questions, everyone. We'll see you soon. Take care, everybody.
Bye.